and welcome to the Long Ways podcast. I'm Devin Windospect.
And I'm Michael Windospect.
And we're a father-son hiking duo out to hike the great long trails of the world. Now, we're actually coming to you the way that a lot of people do to begin their new year here in 2024. We have some bucket list items actually today that we want to talk about. Each year we look at different trails we want to hike around the world. And this year we decided that we're going to be hiking the Lyceum Way in Turkey this year. But we also want to talk about future hikes and some of these hikes that have been on our bucket list, sometimes for 3 or 4 years in a row. So Dad and I have actually come to you guys with 3 trails that each of us picked independently to talk about why we want to go on these trails, why these trails in particular, and also just to talk about our bucket list. So Dad, I think we just started off with you today. What is number 1 on your bucket list of places to go hiking?
Well, I got to tell you, the number 1 that I placed on my list, okay, I've been looking at some of these Germany hikes, and we've talked a lot about this in the past, but I'm going to tell you why it's the Germany hike. So a lot of the Germany hikes are, some of them are drive-in hikes, okay, that we work with Max Adventures a lot, obviously. But my big one is to go ahead and start to do this Germany hike, which is basically the castles of the romantic Rhine. And here's the reason why I like this. First of all, after Slovenia, it's flat. I like flat. Yep. I'm okay with flat. Long distance and flat appears to be a good thing. I'm not ruling out anything with elevation, but flat is a good idea. But each night, you spend a night in a winery that's inside of a castle. And so I've really been getting into this idea of the historic basis of what we're doing on these hikes. I mean, we've been focusing on the natural part of it, being a biologist, but the idea that we can actually do something which has a historic basis, you spend the night in a historic winery. I thought, how can this be bad?
Yeah, Germany's one that's actually eluded us so far. We've hiked around Germany a lot, Slovenia, yep, France, all the Alps. But, Germany is a little bit flatter. It's a little bit more hilly. But I also really wanted to do Germany myself. And, I've spent some time in Germany. I've spent some time in Berlin and in Frankfurt. But I've never really spent time in, the German countryside. So I think that could be a really, really, really cool one.
And these are decent long distance hikes, too. They can be our normal. You can get the short hikes, but there's some really good 7, 8, 9 day hikes, which are going to bring you up into the 80, 90 mile range. So
yeah, this one also it deals a lot with going to different castles around the Rhine, right? I think I saw that, yes, on the pictures.
At the moment I've been looking at it for a while, okay, and I came back to it a couple times today and this week when we're thinking about this. I was like, wouldn't that be fun just to hike along these historic rivers, and to these castles, and then learn something about each one of these castles as we go there. So I'm going to put that as number 1 for me.
Perfect. Number 1 for me. So I actually picked one. I picked one in the Americas, one in America, one in South America, and one in Europe. So I'll actually start with the European one that I want to do. And any Icelandic person will definitely roll their eyes at how I'm pronouncing their name, but it's a difficult language. It's called the Longavager.
I think that you did a great job.
So this is, we've looked at doing Iceland a lot. And each time it kind of comes up with, there's a lot of driving hiking, which is fine. We've actually considered doing a little bit more driving hikes. We haven't done one yet. We've done what they call the classic hikes, which is you hike, you stay in a town, you hike, you stay in a town. This one is really interesting. So in Iceland, most of them is driving hikes, which is fine. We kind of stay along the more touristy parts of the island. And Iceland is becoming more and more touristy over time. And we kind of want to avoid that a lot as much as possible.
Absolutely.
This one is, so I'm actually going to read from the actual Icelandic tourism board right now, or their own hiking trail board. It's unusual because there's so much variety in the landscape. The trail goes through incredibly colorful rhyolite mountains, black obsidian lava, hot springs, clear lakes, and black sandy deserts, and it ends in a lush forest area. So it's actually like only a 4-day hike. The asterisks on top of this, and this is why we might need a hike or two before we do it, is it is another hike. And we had a bit of a trouble with that in Slovenia. It wasn't exactly our thing, but I feel like it could be worth it for this. And I think if I give like Dad and Eric like 1 or 2 more hikes where we're doing like more like town to town, maybe we can come back to this. But I've always wanted to do Iceland, and this one like it carves right through like the middle of the island. So you're actually like going up by like all the volcanoes. You know, like you're climbing the volcanoes themselves.
So I was stationed in Iceland back in the 80s. Okay, back in the ancient days, and I love that country.
Yeah.
I love going to see some of these raw, waterfalls such as Gullfoss, places like the Blue Lagoon. And so I would say to you that is a great choice. And the hut to hike could be tolerable. Iceland is an amazing country populated by unbelievable people. And I would definitely put that one very, very high on my list too.
So look at the site, it's only 4 days, which is kind of what we did in Slovenia. We did about 4 days in the hut and then like another day or two at the end where you can do some hiking around it. So I think it's doable. I'm personally excited that the hike we're going to do, the Lycian Way in Turkey this year, it's going to be a little bit more classic hiking, hut to hut hiking. But this is Iceland's been number one on my list for so long. And every year we kind of think about it. And this year again, we're going to Turkey. We're not doing this one, but maybe next year. I'm not sure. It's an opportunity. So,
it would be, and by the way, I think Eric would be on board because the photography up there is simply unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Once you leave Iceland, you realize that it is a bucket list, destination. By the way, winter or summer, and I kind of almost laughed a little bit here where you said, we're going to go through these lush forests. Just so you know, the Icelandic forests are not exactly like the redwoods.
Yeah,
they're a little
a little smaller. Yep.
Okay. Some people would call them shrubs.
Yep.
But we're okay with that because it is the landscapes, the people, the culture, the interactions is just. I would definitely put that one up there too. And matter of fact, I had that a little bit deeper on my list, but I like that one too.
Awesome. All right, Dad, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is New Zealand.
Yes.
But
so,
New Zealand has its own complications. I
want to just put in real quick. I was going to have New Zealand on this list too, but Dad already had it. So I have some input in this one as well.
We've talked about this one time and time again because New Zealand is probably one of the most amazing places you can go to. I mean, I want to do Australia, okay, but I think New Zealand with hiking, there's a couple complications. One is just simply the logistics, getting in and out of there. So what I'm looking at here is not one of our traditional 8 or 9 day trails, but something which involves almost like a 15 to 20 day trail. But it's also kind of the drive and hike thing. There's times you hike it, there's times you drive it. But everything I've looked at with New Zealand, I just have this. I desire to go there and see this area, and it may be a Lord of the Rings.
I was just about to say Lord of the Rings. Like,
I mean, we can't escape that idea. Thank you, Peter Jackson.
Yep.
Okay, but the idea of this is that it's beautiful and it's doable. You just have to schedule more time, not just the time on the trail, but also, as we've learned, the time in and out. Right? You can't fly in the night before. You can't fly out the day after. Yeah. It doesn't work. So I just think that and what I'm looking at, is basically the South Island adventure.
Exactly.
And I know there's 2 islands and you can scatter it, but it seems like the South Island fits the long ways a little bit better of these hikes. And everything I've saw about is the epic, vistas, the water, the inland and stuff like that is also good.
The way I would want to do this, and I'm actually, I have another site up right now. 100% Pure New Zealand is the site I'm on right now. And New Zealand has these 10 what they call great walks. And they're a little bit shorter than what we usually do. Usually we do 7 to 10 days, depending on the hike. But the South Island in particular, the North has some cool stuff though too, with like hiking some volcanoes. There's like 3 or 4 that I really want to do. And I think the way that we could do this is do like 3 days on the trail with some of them, come off for a day or two, do another trail, and like string like 2 or 3 of these together. So the most famous one is called the Milford Track, and it goes to like these massive fjord lands. It is according to the site New Zealand's most famous walk. The problem with the Milford Trek is that I looked into this about a year ago and it books out like the lodges like 4 years in advance. It's that popular.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's some others though that look really cool. So I have a friend of a friend who actually he spent his entire like a year just hiking from the north to the South Island of New Zealand. And it links all these trails together. And the
Mhm.
one he said that he liked the best was this thing called the Route Burn Track. It's up in the mountains more. Like this is what it says: soaring mountain peaks, huge valleys, waterfalls, and jewel-like lakes. Links Mount Aspiring National Park with Fiordlands National Park. That one looks really cool. It's about a 3-day hike. There's one called the Kepler Track, which is along the fjords. It's more of a coastal hike, which could also be cool. It's over by Milford, but it seems like a little bit less traveled. And then this is cool. And I thought this, like, we could do like 2 trails and then maybe this one. And it's called the Rekiura Track. And so what it
Mhm.
is that there's actually um an island off the coast of the South Island. And it is like its own like little like nature, like bio, like isolate. And you can hike around the island. It takes about 3 days. And it's actually one of the few places in the world where wild kiwis still exist. Um, and the reason for this is that cats are banned from the island. Cats were killing the wild kiwis. So that is one I think would also be really cool to do. So like string a couple of these together, and I think it'd be a really really fun trip. Um, Dad, I think you were talking about how we would have to put aside like a month to do this, though, right?
It would. I think that would be the best way to do it. I can imagine we like link this to some other activities and stuff. At least 2 to 3 weeks, probably 3 weeks would be the minimum for that one. And then, that presents some logistical stuff for us. But I think if you're going to do New Zealand, this is a bucket list thing, and you need to go ahead and do it right, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and spend the time with it.
Well, I'm going to go to my second one. My second one is actually in South America. It's in Chile, and it's called the W Trek. Um, so this one's a little bit this funny. I'm kind of coming at Dad. I'm seeing him. I can't see him on screen right now, but I can picture him rolling his eyes because each of these is like, well, it is hut to hut actually, and it is kind of strenuous. But it's what it is it goes through the Torres del Paine National Park in Patagonia in Chile. Like that has been on my bucket list my entire life to go to. And it's a hut to hut hike. I think it takes only like 5 or 6 days, and it's actually not that long, where you just go through Patagonia. And I can't imagine, like, besides maybe New Zealand, a prettier place to go hiking. So I actually don't have that much to say about the W Trek besides that. Definitely bucket list. And
So I'm thinking, W's with us and the
yeah,
Webbers, okay, is a great idea.
yep.
And I'm thinking that
The
I
merchandising
don't
potential
mind
is
hut
off the
to hut
chart.
as long as the hut is not located 7,000 meters straight up above me. Okay. So we'll talk about this
We'll
later,
talk about this one later.
man.
It is
I
a
would love that. Has been a trail. I've read so many books about that. That
yep.
it's an amazing trail. It gives me the idea of like the Machu Picchu trails and stuff like that, which are not on my list. You know, to go do. I would entertain that idea. Okay. Yes.
Well, I
Okay.
think one of the things, to put a little bit of a pause here, obviously we have some Europe treks in mind. We're going to Turkey. Is that the Middle East? Is that Europe? That's a contentious subject. But we want to start branching out from just Europe on these hikes. And now that we know we have 5 of these hikes under our belt, I think we're becoming experienced hikers enough to be able to say, yeah, we're still going to do the Europe hikes. Like, I really want to go to Germany and do that hike or go to Iceland. But we can start branching out to like South America more, or, maybe there's some stuff in Africa we could do.
Exactly.
And I'm really
Yep.
excited for that personally. Like, I know in Africa, like Kilimanjaro, there's some cool stuff in Morocco, just throwing it out there, maybe way down the line. But I'm excited that we're actually starting to look at stuff outside of Europe right now.
One of the ones I'd looked at really carefully, which kind of made part of my list, was Newfoundland and Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Okay. in Canada, I never really thought about those types of hikes. There's some decent, not long distance hikes, but there's some really good ones there. And another one that didn't make my list was also Norway.
Yeah.
After reading the book, The Praise of Paths, Norway has these unbelievable 30 and 40-mile, hikes through the center of Norway, not just along the coast, which was the ancient way of communicating back and forth to the coastal communities, right? And so I think we are moving, away from the traditional ones, okay, and into some other areas, and I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, again, off the top of my head, another one that didn't make the list is some pilgrimage hikes in Japan.
Yep.
That would be amazing. But
yep.
Let's get to the third one, and then, so Dad, what's your third hike?
My third hike is actually a continuation of one of our previous ones. It is to go ahead and hike the final trek, okay, of the what was not the West Highland Way, but it was basically going from to finish out up in Inverness, the final stage of that trek. It's supposed to be unbelievably beautiful, rugged. We experienced rugged, obviously, on the West Highland Way.
But only really the last few days. Like, it really starts to get rugged like those last 2 or 3 up in the Highlands.
Exactly. And I would like to go ahead, and this is a personal thing, because what I would like to do is finish the West Highland Way.
Yeah.
I couldn't because of a knee issue. Hike that last 16 miles and then begin the next segment up to Inverness, whatever.
The other thing I would like to do on that hike is that I think if we did that, we also see if we can hike Ben Nevis, the largest mountain in the UK.
Exactly. And that would be, and I think that is something that I've really focused my sights on, is that, to finish out a couple trails that I didn't do earlier, the last segments, and for, a variety of reasons, but it'd be fun to do. And everything I've read about is the fact you actually get to go, by these really, interesting places, even more castles as you get up there, right? Which we didn't experience a lot of castles, a couple on our trips. But I think that's one of the ones I want to do. I just love Scotland.
Yeah.
There was something about Scotland, every time you're out on the trail, the wind's hitting you in the face, and it's fun. I mean, of course, the weather changes were interesting. Not as bad as Ireland. Okay,
No.
I remember in Scotland, like, put our wet gear on, take our wet gear off, take our wet gear.
Well, in Slovenia, even that, remember those massive storms of the Alps we saw? Like, weather's a big thing, no matter what.
It is. Yep. And I actually heard a quote the other day, there's no bad weather, there's only bad gear.
Yep.
And I think that's what we're getting used to now, is the fact, if we're prepared for it, we're good for it. So I would like to go finish that segment of Scotland because I just enjoyed the West Highland Way so much.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. Like, I would love to go back to Scotland. I would love to do that second part. That's, I think that would be just such a cool way to kind of come back to where we were. The West Highland Way was on our second hike. We're 5 in now. So kind of come back full circle to really where this really began. We did the Tour of Mont Blanc and we're like, oh, this is cool. But this didn't really become a thing until the West Highland Way.
Yes. Exactly.
And so I think it'd be cool to come full circle back to kind of where it began. My last... go ahead.
That's where we brought Eric into it too.
Exactly.
With the West Highland Way. And
that's why I also feel like that's where we really began. Eric's been a part of this since the beginning. And now he's our number 3 member. Even if he's not always on the podcast. But, we sometimes get him.
Oh, yeah. He has a big schedule. I understand that. But
well, my last one.
He's on the podcast. But I think that I would love to do that one.
Yeah.
I kept coming back to a bunch of other ones, including, I love Portugal. I'd love to do some hikes in Spain and everything. And even going back to, re-exploring the Dolomites and everything.
Yeah.
But there's something about that type of hiking. Scotland has this unique feel. I don't know. It's in their culture of just hiking along these long mountain ridges. It's not brutal. Sometimes it's hard, but it's not really that bad. I mean, but it's a lot of fun to go, like, just, you look in front of you and all you're seeing for 15 miles is highlands. You're like, where's hiking it, man? We're just going to walk it.
Yeah.
So I put that on there because I think I'd like to do that. I think I could do it, relatively soon, next couple of years. So,
well, my last one And this is more of an aspirational one. And I don't actually know if it's something that we could do in one go. Maybe it's an idea of section hiking it. But I wanted to do more hikes in America. So, Dad and I, we got started hiking by hiking sections of the Appalachian Trail or the Mountain of the Sea Trail around the mountains in North Carolina. But we've never really done a full trail in the United States. I've done one.
Yep.
I did the Colorado Trail after high school, which kind of got me into like this long hiking thing in the first place. But the one I want to do is a 3-week trail, and this one actually involves tent camping, and that's a little hard for us in general, which is why I thought about section hiking it. Is to do the John Muir Trail out west.
Mm.
Everything I've seen shows that this is one of the most beautiful trails, not just in America, but just in the world, period. It's 3 weeks. You're going through some of the most gorgeous scenery of the Sierra Nevada mountains. I've never been someone who wants to do the entire AT or the entire Pacific Crest. It's a little too long for me. But that 3 weeks, that's just about what I did in Colorado when I left from high school. That's perfect. And so one of the thoughts I was thinking about with this is, could we think about over the years, maybe in addition to our long ways, going in section hiking it? Like, do we do like 3 or 4 days here and like, 5 or 6 days there, and try to, section hike our way through it? Or we could just sit down one year and say, we have it, and let's do 3 weeks on the John Muir. Just because, we travel the world for these hikes, but we're also in a country that has some of the best hikes in the world. Like, America is so pretty. When you go out west, my sister, Dad's daughter, lives out in Colorado, and just being out there, we even did like a short ways out in Colorado together.
That was amazing.
And yeah, like that was just like a 3-mile hike, and that was just so pretty. So I want to explore more of America. I think the John Muir Trail would be a really great way to do that.
And I think we get, encourage some of our listeners to tell us how they may have done it too.
Yeah.
I mean, how would that work? None of us are against doing, none of us are against doing, outdoor camping, camping on the trail, all these things. We're not against huts, but how do you make it work? Okay, how do you make it work to make it not, you see people who, hike the Appalachian Trail and they look like, they're about to die.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
Okay, because they've been hiking for 30 days, and I get that, and I love them for what they're doing. But how do you make it so that it is something of a voyage of exploration?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people have ideas. Like, if you just did this section, and then, you can arrange a transport from here to here to a town for 2 days. I know, Devin, you did that on the Colorado Trail a couple times, right?
Exactly.
Okay, and you have those 2 days of down, and you're like, okay, we're back on the trail for 3 days. We're completely okay with that. What we're trying to
3 weeks of just tents. I think both of us are a little bit past that by now.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I know I am. I definitely am. But I would love to explore these. It's so much fun. We've lived and hiked the Appalachian Trail in this area, and so many amazing trails in the Appalachian Mountains. Seriously, that are beautiful type of things. So, our listeners should tell us, here's an idea we have.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to listen to it. I mean, we're explorers who want to do this as long as we possibly can. And I think it's a great thing. We're going to do it.
Yeah. Well, as a last question for this episode, Dad, how did you find your trails? Because I think a lot of people are kind of sitting here and they're saying, okay, you guys have like all these trails you found, but how do you know about them? So how did you find the ones that you wanted to go on?
So I'm going to be honest with you. We have had really good experience with Max Adventures.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you enough good things about these people. Not only are they good at setting you up for these hikes, but they're also really good at, if we've had problems on the trail, we called them like, we have no idea what the hell we are.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and they're like, you need to go and you go raise the balloon at the lake. What the hell does that even mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Until you walk up the lake, you're like, there's a balloon. And then all of a sudden a ferry comes across to you and you're like, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
And when they set things up, so I traditionally have deferred to reading about things in hiking magazines, obviously Outdoors and other magazines, but more importantly, going back to Max and looking at some of the similar trails and then investigating them from there. Would I want to do this? Is it something similar? And then I think you find something you like as a long distance trail. And when we say long distance trail, let's just say it's 50 miles or more. Because people say long distance be 100 miles. No, we've had 50-mile trails, which can kick our butt. Selenium.
Yep.
Okay, we've had 100-mile trails, which were relatively easy. Hold on, I don't know a single one of those things. But anyways, the idea of it is the fact that you just, you go out and discover things and you look for similar things.
Yeah.
And there's organizations out there which will help you, including commercial organizations such as REI and others. So that would be my advice.
I mean,
find what you like and go look for something similar.
Agreed. I think it's perfect advice. For me, I like, I think I got a book a while ago, which is like the 100 best hikes in the world. I think it's actually sitting at your coffee table, Dad.
It is sitting on my coffee table.
Yeah.
It's actually the 500 best hikes.
Exactly.
It's right on my coffee table. It's open half the time.
And that just inspires me. Am I going to be the guy who like hikes some of the tallest mountains in the Himalayas? That's not me. But it's just get inspired. Like open the books, find stuff like that. You can find stuff online, buy outdoor or like Red Bull or like there's all these kind of things.
Yeah.
But just find the ones that where you look at it and you go, that seems just really, really, really cool. And then the logistics come in, and then you might be like, okay, I can't do it this year, but maybe in 2 years or something. But like the other thing I would
remind people that if we can do it, you can do it.
Exactly.
We are experienced now, but our experience is because we went to Mont Blanc.
We didn't know what we were doing.
1 foot in front of the other.
Yep.
Straight up.
Yep. Exactly. Well, I think we're going to close with, Dad, you have actually a little announcement yourself about a kind of an extra hike you're doing this year. So I thought we would actually end by announcing that. And then we might actually talk a little bit about...
We're going to do a special episode on this. I am going to go ahead and do the Hadrian's Wall Path coming up in April. We're going to call it a long ways. It is kind of long. It's going to be a solo hike for me. And I'll come back and talk to you about this. This has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed this idea. We talked about it today on our podcast a little bit more about exploring the history of some of the places we've been. We have been some amazing places, and we've seen some amazing things across Europe and everywhere. And I'm starting to dive a little bit more into the history of why these things exist. So that's going to happen in April. It will be a lot of fun, and I am looking forward to talking to you more about it.
Awesome. Well, we're going to end there. Once again, I'm Devin Windelspect.
And I'm Michael Windelspect.
And this is the Long Ways Podcast.